The phone call came at 3:17 a.m. on a Tuesday. You know the kind, the one that changes everything. My wife Beverly had been gone for 6 months, taken by cancer at 56, and I thought I knew everything about our 32 years together. Turns out I was wrong. My name is Tyler Brooks. I'm 58, and I've been building things my whole life. Construction foreman, project manager, the kind of guy who believes in hard work and straight talk. After Beverly passed, I figured I'd seen the worst life could throw at me. Boy, was I mistaken. The call was from some lawyer in Montana named Dean Phillips. He had that careful tone lawyers use when they're about to drop a bomb on you. Mr. Brooks, I'm calling about the Sweetwater Ranch property. According to my records, Mrs. Beverly Brooks purchased it 3 years ago, and ownership has now transferred to you. I sat up in bed, fully awake now. What ranch? My wife never bought any ranch. I'm afraid she did, sir. The deed shows clear title to 800 acres in Gallatin County, Montana. All taxes paid through 2029. She left specific instructions that you were only to be informed after her passing. My head was spinning. Beverly, who clipped grocery store coupons and bought generic cereal, had somehow bought a ranch. With what money? We lived in a modest split level in Minneapolis. I drove a 2015 Ford pickup with 180,000 miles on it. Beverly taught elementary school until the budget cuts forced her into early retirement. We were comfortable, sure, but ranch buying money? That was fantasy land. Mr. Phillips, we were comfortable, but we weren't rich. How could she afford? Sir, there's something else. The property has become quite valuable. Significant oil deposits were discovered on adjacent properties about 18 months ago. Your ranch sits right in the middle of it. That's when I knew this story was just getting started. I couldn't get back to sleep. Beverly had always been the organized one, keeping track of our finances, paying the bills, managing our small savings account. But she was also honest to a fault. The kind of woman who'd drive back to the store if the cashier gave her too much change, keeping a secret this big. It didn't fit the woman I'd married, unless she had a good reason. 2 days later, I was on a plane to Bozeman with more questions than answers. Beverly had left me a sealed envelope that Phillips insisted I open only at the ranch itself. My daughter Susan was supposed to meet me there. She's 29, works in marketing in Denver, and took her mother's death harder than anyone. Susan had been Beverly's mini-me growing up, same stubborn streak, same fierce loyalty to family, same way of tilting her head when she was thinking through a problem. After the funeral, she'd thrown herself into work trying to outrun the grief. I worried about her, but at 29, she didn't need her old man telling her how to handle loss. The drive from Bozeman to the ranch gave me time to think. Beverly and I had met when we were both 26, her fresh out of college with an education degree, me just starting my own construction crew. We'd built a good life together, nothing fancy but solid. She taught elementary school for 25 years before the budget cuts. We raised Susan, paid our bills, took a vacation every few years to Yellowstone or the Grand Canyon. But buying a ranch? That would have cost serious money, money we definitely didn't have lying around, unless Beverly's father had died about 10 years ago. She'd flown out to Montana for the funeral, came back quiet and angry about something. When I'd asked about it, she'd just said her family was complicated and left it at that. Beverly never talked much about her childhood, claimed it wasn't worth discussing. I'd respected that. Everyone's got things they'd rather forget. Maybe I should have pushed harder. The Sweetwater Ranch sat in a valley surrounded by rolling hills, with the crazy mountains visible in the distance. It was beautiful country, the kind of place Beverly always said she'd love to live someday. The main house was a classic Montana ranch, log construction, wide porches, looked like it belonged in a magazine. What surprised me was how well maintained everything looked. This wasn't some abandoned property. Someone had been taking care of it. The fences were in good repair, the barn looked freshly painted, and there were tire tracks in the gravel driveway that couldn't have been more than a few days old. I found the key where Phillips said it would be, under a loose stone by the front steps. Inside, the house took my breath away. It was furnished like Beverly had always dreamed, rustic but comfortable, with a stone fireplace and windows that framed the mountains perfectly. The kitchen had granite countertops and professional-grade appliances. The living room had leather furniture that looked expensive but lived in. This wasn't just a house someone had bought as an investment. This was a home someone had created with love. On the kitchen table sat a laptop with a note in Beverly's handwriting. Tyler, the password is the day we met, followed by my maiden name. I love you more than you'll ever know. Before I could process that, I heard vehicles pulling up outside. Through the window, I saw a black Suburban and a silver Mercedes. 3 men got out, all wearing expensive suits, all with the same basic look. Tall, dark hair, confident walk. The kind of men who were used to getting their way. They knocked on the door like they owned the place. Tyler Brooks. The oldest one stepped forward, mid-50s lawyer type with silver at his temples and the kind of expensive watch that cost more than my truck. I'm Brady Coleman. These are my brothers Nathan and Trevor. We need to talk, Coleman. I knew that name from somewhere, but it took a moment to click. About what? About this ranch. Our family's ranch. Brady pushed past me into the house like he belonged there. Nice place. Beverly always had good taste, even if she didn't have the sense to keep it in the family. That's when it clicked. Beverly's maiden name was Coleman. These were her brothers she'd never mentioned in 32 years of marriage. Excuse me? I stepped in front of Brady, making it clear he wasn't welcome to just wander around. My wife never mentioned having brothers. Nathan, the middle brother, opened a briefcase with the kind of precision that screamed corporate lawyer. He was younger than Brady, but had the same entitled air. Tyler, we understand this is complicated. Beverly bought this property from our father without consulting the family. Now that she's gone, we think it's time to straighten things out. Straighten what out? She bought it legally, didn't she? With money she borrowed against the family trust, Trevor added. He was the youngest, maybe 45, with the kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. Clean-shaven, perfect hair, expensive cologne. Money she had no right to touch. I was starting to get angry. These guys waltzed into my wife's house, our house, acting like they owned the place and talking about Beverly like she was some kind of thief. My wife never mentioned any family trust, or any family for that matter. Brady laughed, but there was no humor in it. That's Beverly for you. Always thought she was too good for us after she got her college degree and moved to Minnesota to play house with a construction worker. The insult hit exactly where he intended, but I dealt with guys like this my whole career. Rich clients who thought their money made them better than the people who actually built their buildings. She never mentioned you because you treated her like dirt, I said. That much is obvious. Look, Nathan said, pulling out papers from his briefcase. We're prepared to be reasonable. The property's worth maybe $2 million on its own, with the oil potential maybe $8 million total. We'll give you $3 million and you can walk away clean. No lawyers, no messy family disputes. $3 million was more money than I'd see in a lifetime of construction work. But something felt wrong about this whole situation. These guys showed up within hours of me arriving at the ranch. They knew about the oil deposits. They had paperwork ready to go. This wasn't some spur-of-the-moment visit. I need time to think. Sure, Brady said, his lawyer mask slipping to show the predator underneath, but don't think too long. Legal challenges can get expensive, and we have deeper pockets than a construction worker from Minneapolis. Trevor pulled out his phone. We've already filed a preliminary challenge to the will. Our lawyers and Billings are very good at what they do. Is that a threat? It's reality, Nathan said smoothly. Beverly may have fooled a small-town lawyer, but this is going to federal court. You'll be fighting this for years, spending money you don't have on lawyers you can't afford. After they left, I sat at the kitchen table feeling like I'd been sucker punched. These weren't just greedy relatives. They were professionals at this. They had resources, legal teams, and a plan. What did I have? A construction business back in Minnesota and a confused understanding of what was happening. I opened the laptop with shaking hands. The password worked, April 15th, 1990, Coleman. The day we met, followed by her maiden name just like she'd written. The screen showed dozens of video files, each labeled with a date. I clicked on the first one, dated just 2 weeks after her cancer diagnosis. Beverly's face filled the screen, not the thin, pale version from her final months, but healthy, vibrant. The woman I'd fallen in love with decades ago. Hi, honey, she said, with that smile that still made my heart skip. If you're watching this, then I'm gone and you've found the ranch. I know you're confused and probably angry that I kept this secret. I know my brothers have already shown up. They're predictable that way. She looked down for a moment, gathering herself, then looked back at the camera with the determination I'd seen whenever she was protecting our family. I need to tell you about my family, Tyler. The family I ran away from when I was 18 and swore I'd never see again. The story she told over the next 45 minutes explained everything. The Coleman brothers had inherited their father's construction and development business when Beverly was just 16. The same business that had made them rich and made them cruel. Beverly had been the youngest, the only girl, and they'd made her life miserable from the day she was born. They called me stupid because I wanted to teach school instead of join the family business. They said I was throwing my life away marrying a construction worker. When Dad died 10 years ago and left me a share of the family trust, they tried to cheat me out of it. Beverly had fought them in court for 3 years, spending her inheritance on lawyers, but she'd won. The settlement had given her enough money to disappear from their lives forever. I used my share to buy this place 3 years ago when I got my diagnosis. I wanted to leave you something beautiful, Tyler, something that would take care of you and Susan after I was gone. The video showed Beverly looking around the very room I was sitting in, her eyes taking in details I was just now noticing myself. They'll come for it, Tyler. Brady's a lawyer. He knows how to make trouble. Nathan will threaten you with development complications. Trevor will try to buy you off or bankrupt you with legal fees. But Tyler, this ranch is yours. I made sure of it. She leaned closer to the camera, her voice dropping to the tone she used when she was deadly serious. In the barn office, there's a safe behind the filing cabinet. The combination is Susan's birthday, month, day, year. Inside, you'll find everything you need to fight them. Documents, recordings, evidence of things they've done over the years. Dad always said they were crooked, but he never had the guts to stop them. I did. The sound of a car door slamming interrupted the video. Through the window, I saw Susan getting out of a rental car. Looking tired from the drive, but determined. At 29, she had Beverly's dark hair and my stubborn jawline, a combination that had gotten her through college on scholarships and into a good marketing job in Denver. Dad? She knocked on the door frame before stepping inside. This place is incredible. Why didn't Mom ever tell us about it? I paused the video and gave her a hug. She felt thinner than I remembered, the kind of weight loss that comes from stress and skipped meals. Your mother had her reasons. Come here, you need to see this. We watched Beverly's video together, Susan's hand covering her mouth as her mother explained about the toxic family she'd escaped from. So those men who stopped by my hotel this morning, Susan said when the video ended, your uncles paid you a visit. They were so friendly. Said they wanted to meet their niece, share family stories about Mom when she was young. They made it sound like Mom had been too proud to reconnect with them. Susan's voice carried the hurt of someone who'd been expertly manipulated. They had photos, Dad, pictures of Mom as a teenager that I'd never seen. Classic manipulation. Use emotion to create trust, then exploit that trust. I'd seen contractors pull similar tricks on elderly homeowners. What did you tell them? That I'd think about their offer to buy the ranch. They said it would be better than fighting a long legal battle we couldn't win. She looked around the house her mother had created in secret, but now I'm thinking Mom didn't buy this place to sell it. That evening, after Susan had settled into one of the guest rooms, I found the safe in the barn office exactly where Beverly said it would be. The office itself was set up like a command center, desktop computer, printer, filing cabinets, and maps of the local area covering one entire wall. Behind the largest filing cabinet, I found a wall safe. Susan's birthday, 08/15/1995. The safe clicked open. Inside were folders of documents going back 20 years, but these weren't random papers. Beverly had organized them like a prosecutor building a case. Bank records, recorded phone calls, contracts, emails, photographs, a complete picture of how the Coleman brothers operated their business. It wasn't pretty. Bribing building inspectors to approve substandard work, using materials that didn't meet code specifications, cheating subcontractors out of payment through legal technicalities, skimming money from client accounts and hiding it in shell companies. Brady had used his law practice to cover it up. Nathan had falsified environmental reports on major developments, and Trevor had created a network of offshore accounts to launder the profits. Beverly had been building this case for years, probably hoping she'd never have to use it. But she'd been thorough. Photographs of falsified documents, audio recordings of planning meetings, bank records showing money movement, even sworn statements from former employees who'd been fired for refusing to participate. One folder was labeled Clearwater Development, Environmental Fraud 2019. Inside were copies of the real soil contamination reports alongside the falsified versions Nathan had submitted to the state. A $50 million development had been built on contaminated ground, with Nathan's company pocketing an extra $8 million by skipping the required cleanup. Another folder contained recordings of Brady coaching clients to lie during depositions, a clear violation of legal ethics that would cost him his law license if it ever came to light. The final folder contained Trevor's banking records, showing a systematic pattern of client fund theft spanning 15 years. He'd been skimming small amounts from dozens of accounts, betting that individual losses would be too small to investigate. The total was over $3 million. I also found geological surveys showing that the Sweetwater Ranch sat on top of the richest oil deposit in the region. The brothers' $8 million estimate was about $20 million short of the real value. Beverly had commissioned independent surveys from 3 different firms, all confirming the same massive reserve beneath the western section of the property. As I studied the evidence, my construction background helped me understand exactly what the Coleman brothers had been doing. They'd been cutting corners and stealing money for decades, using their combined expertise, legal, development, and financial, to create an almost perfect crime machine. Beverly had figured out how to stop it. I spent the rest of the night reading through every document, understanding the scope of what she'd uncovered. By morning, I had a plan. It wasn't going to be enough to just defend the ranch. I was going to take these bastards down completely. The first step was setting up a meeting. I called Brady's office and told his secretary I wanted to discuss their offer, but I wanted to do it properly with lawyers present and all the cards on the table. Brady called back within an hour. Smart move, Tyler. I was hoping you'd see reason. How about Friday afternoon at the ranch? We can wrap this up quickly and quietly. Perfect. 2 o'clock. And Brady, bring your best people. I want this done right, of course. You'll see this is the best solution for everyone. After I hung up, Susan looked at me with Beverly's determined expression. What are you planning, Dad? Justice, I said. Your mother spent years preparing for this fight. Time to finish what she started. The week passed slowly as I prepared for the confrontation. I used skills I'd learned in 35 years of construction planning, preparation, and always having multiple contingency plans. This wasn't just about defending the ranch anymore. This was about justice for every person the Coleman brothers had cheated over the past 20 years. I made arrangements that would have made Beverly proud. First, I contacted Lance Griffin, CEO of Rocky Mountain Energy, the company that had been trying to secure mineral rights in the area. I also reached out to Dean Phillips, asking him to recommend the toughest litigation attorney in Montana. Finally, I made one more call that the Coleman brothers would never see coming. At exactly 2 p.m. on Friday, the Coleman brothers arrived with their entourage. The black Suburban disgorged Brady and Nathan, while Trevor emerged from the Mercedes with a man I didn't recognize. Expensive suit, briefcase. The look of someone used to intimidating people with paperwork, but they weren't prepared for what waited inside. Susan and I were seated at the dining room table with Dean Phillips and Martha Rodriguez, the litigation attorney he'd recommended. Martha had spent 20 years prosecuting white-collar crime before going into private practice. She had the kind of reputation that made corporate lawyers nervous. At the head of the table sat Lance Griffin, CEO of Rocky Mountain Energy, studying geological surveys that Beverly had left me. Gentlemen, I said as they settled around the table, clearly thrown off by the professional setup. Thank you for coming. Before we discuss any deals, I think we should establish exactly what we're dealing with. I pulled out Beverly's geological surveys and spread them across the table. These are independent surveys my wife commissioned from 3 different firms. They show the true extent of the oil deposits under this ranch. The Coleman brothers' lawyer, he'd introduced himself as Keith Hawkins from Billings, leaned forward, studying the maps. Where did these come from? My wife was thorough. She wanted to know exactly what she was buying. I nodded to Lance Griffin. Mr. Griffin has verified their accuracy. Griffin spoke for the first time. These surveys are more detailed than what my company has been working with. Mrs. Brooks hired Geopacific, the same firm we use for major projects. Their work is impeccable. Brady's confidence was starting to crack. I could see him trying to recalculate the value in his head. Those surveys are worthless without proper verification from the State Geological Office. Actually, Griffin continued, the state has been using Geopacific data for their own assessments. These surveys will likely become the official baseline for this entire region. Trevor was looking nervous, his perfect composure starting to slip. What's your point, Tyler? My point is that you've been lying about the value. This ranch isn't worth $8 million according to these surveys, and Mr. Griffin's professional assessment, we're looking at reserves worth closer to $30 million. The room went quiet except for the sound of Keith Hawkins flipping through pages, his expression growing more concerned with each survey map. Nathan tried to recover first. Even if that's true, you'll spend years in court proving ownership while we tie up the assets with legal challenges. Our firm has resources you can't match. That's when I played my first ace about those legal challenges, I said, pulling out Beverly's evidence files. I think you gentlemen have bigger problems than this ranch. I handed Keith Hawkins a folder marked Coleman Brothers Financial Irregularities 2008-2023. His face went pale as he read the first page. It was a summary of Trevor's client fund theft, complete with bank records and account numbers. Where did this come from? Hawkins demanded, my wife spent 15 years documenting your business practices. She was very thorough. I handed another folder to Griffin. Mr. Griffin, you might be particularly interested in this one. It shows how Nathan falsified environmental impact reports on the Clearwater project in 2019. Griffin's company had bid on Clearwater and lost to Nathan's firm. Now he knew why. His expression hardened as he read the documentation of soil contamination that Nathan had covered up. Brady grabbed the folder from his lawyer. You can't prove any of this. Actually, I can. Bank records, recorded conversations, email exchanges, sworn statements from former employees. Beverly was building a federal case. I handed a third folder to Martha Rodriguez. Attorney-client privilege violations, coaching witnesses to commit perjury, falsifying court documents. enough to get Brady disbarred and criminally prosecuted. The room went silent except for the sound of pages turning as they realized the scope of what Beverly had collected. "What do you want?" Brady finally asked, his lawyer facade crumbling. "I want you to leave me and my family alone. I want you to stop trying to steal this ranch. And I want you to never contact us again. And if we refuse..." I smiled. Then Monday morning, copies of these files go to the Montana Attorney General, the FBI, the IRS, the State Bar Association, and every major newspaper in the region. "Oh, and Mr. Griffin here will be filing complaints with the Environmental Protection Agency about Clearwater." Trevor was sweating now. "You're talking about destroying 3 businesses, dozens of jobs. I'm talking about justice. You've been cheating people for 20 years. Beverly couldn't stop you when she was alive, but she made sure I could." Nathan looked at his brothers, desperation creeping into his voice. "Maybe we should consider his terms. Brady wasn't done fighting. You're bluffing. You wouldn't risk the lawsuits this would bring." That's when Susan spoke up. "Actually, we would. Mom taught me that sometimes you have to stand up to bullies, even when it's scary." I reached for my final card. "There's one more thing you should know. Beverly didn't just collect evidence of your crimes. She also discovered something interesting about your family history." I pulled out a birth certificate and several legal documents. "Your father had another family, Brady, a wife and 2 children he never acknowledged. They're still alive, they're still in Montana, and they have as much legal claim to the Coleman family assets as you do." The color drained from all 3 brothers' faces. Beverly found them 5 years ago. She's been in contact with them, helping them understand their legal rights. I smiled grimly. They're very interested in learning about their father's business practices and their half-brother's activities. It was the final blow. The Coleman brothers exchanged glances, some unspoken communication passing between them. They knew they were beaten. Finally, Brady nodded. "Fine. We'll stay away from the ranch and your family, and we won't contest ownership or file any legal challenges." Martha Rodriguez slid a document across the table. "This settlement agreement makes it binding. Sign it. And we're done." After they left, Lance Griffin made an offer to purchase the mineral rights for $25 million, with environmental protections and a restoration fund that would have made Beverly proud. Susan decided to take a leave of absence from her Denver job to help manage the ranch. "I need a fresh start after Mom's death," she said. "This place gives me a connection to her I never knew existed." That night, I sat on the porch watching the sunset over the crazy mountains. The laptop was open beside me, ready for the next day's video from Beverly. She'd made enough recordings to last a full year, her way of helping me through the grief and adjustment. I'd spent my whole life building things with my hands. Houses, commercial buildings, infrastructure that would last for generations. But Beverly had built something more important, a legacy that protected our family and honored the values we shared. The ranch had oil money, but that wasn't its real value. Its real value was proof that love doesn't end with death. That sometimes the people we think we know completely still have the power to surprise us, and that an elementary school teacher from Minnesota could outmaneuver 3 corrupt businessmen just by being patient, thorough, and smarter than they ever gave her credit for. The Forbidden Ranch had become our sanctuary, Beverly's final gift to the family she chose over the family she was born into. Tomorrow I'd watch another video, hear more of her voice, and continue building the life she'd envisioned for us. The Coleman brothers were part of the past now. This ranch, this land, this legacy, that was our future, and Beverly would be part of it every step of the way. Sometimes the greatest victories aren't won with fists or fury, but with patience, preparation, and the quiet strength of someone who loved you enough to fight battles you didn't even know were coming. A real man doesn't just build things that last, he builds protection that endures long after he's gone, ensuring his family never faces the wolves alone.